Hello, my name is Rozan Javadi. I am a mental health practitioner. Today I want to talk about autism spectrum. Autism share many of its features with other conditions which can make it difficult to diagnose. Some features of autism that can be found in other conditions include learning disabilities, language disorders, and specific development disorders, and early onset of epilepsy, Rett syndromes, neurodegenerative disorders. Diagnosis of autism require that be identified, diagnosed in early childhood before children starting school. Diagnosis for autism spectrum identification normally takes place in abnormal settings, and as is possible that this make children and their behavior a bit different. However, communication barrier diagnosis can have unreliable methods of diagnosis. Some tests, for example, that are used to determine how fully the child can interact and based on the assessor assumption of their intellectual ability can be some degree of issues. Impairment of social relationship, which is related to part of autism spectrum disorder, impact on the individual behavior is other tests. For example, in this part of the triad, characteristics can vary from being aloof or passive to active but odd. Aloof shows almost no reaction to others people's behavior or communication. Passive will respond to attempt an interaction but won't initiate them. Active, but it looks a bit odd. In this part of the triad, communication can vary greatly from completely absent and speech to being able to communicate fairly well, but on a limited range of topics they can discuss. Also, we can see an absent speech or disordered speech, echolalia or repetitive speech, other sign to diagnose autism spectrum. Reasonable communication, but for a limited range of topics or other signs and symptoms, you can diagnose the autism spectrum disorder. These characteristics can also change in different circumstances, such as the transition from young child to a teenager and then to adult. Other signs and symptoms which can help to understand and identify autism spectrum is that normally those individuals struggling with playing and imaginative things. Individual with autism can normally copy play, such as a repeating story that they have seen on TV or in comics, but they have a problem with their own story, to making their own or build up their own story. Common speech problems in autism spectrum can be include repetitive words spoken to them, echolalia, asking for things by repeating a phrase they associate with the action. Example, if telling the autism person one say, "Do you want a copy of tea?" Instead of telling or responding, "You, I want a cup of tea or coffee or chocolate, hot chocolate." Normally the missing linking words out of sentence, such as in, on, because, and under. So for example, a child may say go car shop, or missing out the joining word explaining greater detail than is necessary. Long replies to question is spoken as if learned from a book, which they honestly they haven't any clue about those story and normally just repeating it. So difficulties with understanding different speech, such as if you are not using direct speech or using metaphor or using some sarcasm or joke, it's gonna be very difficult for them to understand. Also, for autistic person, understanding different objects that have the same name can be confusing, such as a bowl, a washing and bowl, or eating bowl. And words that sound same cause a confusion, such as a meat and meat, and literal interpretation also can cause a problem, such as a phrases. For example, have you lost your tongue? A symptom of autism spectrum disorder can be included tone and voice control, and those individuals hardly can control their voice. There are a number of characteristics relating to the way a speech is made, which can be found in person with autism spectrum disorder. Those issues can be included problems with volume. Sometimes it can be so loud and or so quiet. The voice may sound mechanical or robotic. And diagnose autism spectrum disorder, it's necessary to understand nonverbal communication as well too. For example, speech is only one of the variety of ways in which we communicate, and all sorts of gesture accompany speech, and these include eye movement too, arms and hands movement as well, posture change and facial gesture as well. So people who do not have autism condition, but they have impairment in say speech, are able to use other way to communicate. But people with autism condition, they have an impairment in communication which goes beyond just a speech. An individual with autism unlikely to develop additional communication skill, and whilst some of the more severely impaired can learn some manual sign language. Autism spectrum condition in different individuals, it's necessary to understand impairment of thinking and behavior in those people. One of the key characteristics of autism is the inability to play or engage in imaginative activity. So a toy truck became a plaything only in as much as the spinning of wheel provide stimulation. The lack of imaginative play leads to limited or no understanding of other people's emotions. So people with autism condition find it's difficult to share their happiness or sadness with other people. Many people with autism find that pleasure is a special interest, also repetitive stereotype activities. Many people with autism condition display stereotype activity such as a tasting or smelling objects, feeling or tapping different surfaces, and listening to mechanical noises such as washing machines, switching lights on and off, and spinning objects, head banging, placing object in long line that they do not want to move. Its daily life is normally routine, and they don't like any change in their daily activity, and they are just obsessed with doing certain activities such as just collecting leaves or strange objects, or for example collecting teens. Other feature of autism including a stereotype movement like a finger flapping, arm waving, and jumping, head rolling, and walking on tiptoes, abnormal gait and posture where the individual may not swing his or her arms properly when walking. Also, they may hold their hands out when they're walking, or may their hand or fingers or arm is unusual ways. Also, you can see those people may have difficulty with physical education games. Additionally, some individuals with autism also can show distress when exposed to very bright light, so they can be sensitive to smell, taste, and certain texture. Inappropriate behavior is other may find challenging in common with children with autism. Example, confusion and fear of unfamiliar or changing circumstances, and restlessness, and distractive and aggressive behavior, screaming in public, and meltdown. Also, mental health difficulty can be other issue which can affect autism conditions. For those people who has autism and experiencing difficulty and due their communication and social interaction or other daily activity, normally they can feel high stress and anxious or feeling very upset. Thank you for watching my video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you like it, you can subscribe the video, share it, and send it for others. Thank you. Bye.